We were pretty superstitious. All of us were. My mom, my dad, my grandparents, and the teachers. Neighbors, coaches, and bus drivers, too. We lived our lives by many traditions that might seem naive and old-fashioned at first glance. There is a simple reason for us having them, though. We all lived fine and well, obeying the communal gut feeling, and it never disappointed as long as we listened to our sayings. Not all of them sounded as inherently disturbing as the empty chair, of course. Some were just signs we looked out for. Like if there's a butterfly in your house, it means you'll get visitors soon. Others were little tricks that could just ease your life. Like if you want visitors to leave your home, a bit of salt poured into their shoes will do the trick. And some were, well, a bit disturbing, I guess. Like if you lean over a railing, the devil will grab you and pull you toward the ground. That one we can't really fact check, unfortunately. As I said, there were many of those phrases they kept repeating so nobody will ever forget. And the one I've heard the most in my life happens to be the one about the chair. Never leave a chair in your bedroom empty at night. Dad repeated it every night like a prayer when I was still little. And Mom would come by later in the evening to make sure I had a backpack or some books or even just a jacket lying on my desk chair. And it was the only one in my room. As I grew older, they didn't need to remind me anymore. The phrase was deeply ingrained into my brain. I still heard Mom's footsteps at night, though. I suppose she wanted to be really sure nobody would be taking a seat next to me at night. When I was younger, I didn't understand why this was so important to everyone I knew. To me, there was one simple solution to the whole hex altogether. Simply not having a chair in your room. You don't really need it when you have your bed anyway. Except for doing homework, maybe. Unfortunately, however, removing the chair is not an option, and there's a reason for that too, of course. As I said, superstitions are kind of our thing. As terribly afraid as the people of our community were of forgetting an empty chair, they were even more anxious of what might happen if there was no chair at all. You want to have a space for someone that might visit. You just don't want them to visit without your approval first. It's a very strange concept, and I can't quite say how it even started. I suppose it's something our village people made up a long time ago. Someone probably once tried to remove their chair and was met with terrible fortune, and so they took the risk of having the chair in their rooms with items stacked on top. I never cared for the strange ideas and superstitions of our community much. Not until I understood what happens when you don't listen to them. You can never really have every single member of a community obeying the same rules. Some people are just inherently going against the flow. Risk takers, show-offs, and adrenaline junkies. Then you have the ones who never listened much as kids and grew up not caring for old traditions. Especially when they read and watch all kinds of horror stories and start to realize that something isn't necessarily scary just because someone says so. I suppose many kids now just think that the whole saying is a way for their parents to make sure they keep their rooms clean. And so of course there are the ones who intentionally kept a chair, or even more, welcomingly empty for whoever might visit at night. They call themselves brave. We call them cautionary tales, because they would all regret it when the visitor came. The story I know the best is the one of Billy Tucker. Billy never cared much for any of the tales the older ones tell. Billy liked to tempt fate more than anything. While he lived with his parents, they made sure he was safe even if he didn't approve, but Billy grew older and bought his own little house on the same street as us. It was the very first night that he would sleep there alone, and I suppose he forgot about the chair. Or possibly he just wanted to see what would happen if he ignored the phrases that had been shoved in his head all his life. I saw him getting the mail the other day. He looked tired and disturbed. He told me he kept thinking there was someone inside his house, but that wasn't possible. Nobody ever broke into a house around here. He told me he heard someone whisper in his ear to wake him up. When he looked around, he didn't see anything but a jacket that wasn't there before, hanging by his closet. You know, it was probably just my ma. That woman is anxiety personified, Billy joked back then. That was the first day. After that, Billy hardly left his home anymore. I'd see his parents stop by at times to bring him food, but he never stepped outside. Apparently, he was slowly but surely losing his mind. It lasted a week until his parents found him in his bedroom closet, swinging. It was a devastating tragedy for sure, but I wasn't completely convinced that it had anything to do with a chair. Billy had been a troubled kid, that was no secret. However, whether I really believed in it or not didn't matter. My gut feeling had merged with the one of the community. Whether I was afraid of the empty chair or not, as long as I lived in that strange village with all of its rules and sayings, I would stick with them, even if it was just for the sake of my parents' mental health. And I did, all those years, until I moved far away from the village. Living in a big city was far different than anything I'd ever imagined. I suddenly had a sense of freedom I'd never perceived before. At first, it was overwhelming. All the places I could go to, and all the things I could do, but after a while, I realized that this was exactly where I belonged. I found new friends, I got a nice studio apartment, and a new sense of my own identity. But of course, the words I heard all my life stuck with me, even far away from our little village. I suppose a part of me believed in the superstitions, at least to some degree, but I always believed that I left them with me at my old home. I didn't believe they would follow me. Not until the night. I came home rather late after drinking at the pub with a few friends. I could hardly keep my eyes open and went to bed pretty quick. With the last bit of consciousness, I heard the bag on my chair in my room slip to the ground. My gut kept telling me to go back and pick it up, but my drunken and tired mind said that everything would be fine. I should have listened to the gut. It was still pitch black out when I woke up by the sounds. It sounded as if someone was moving inside my apartment. At first, I didn't register much. I guess for a moment I forgot that I lived alone. When the realization came to me, my eyes opened wide. My heart started racing and I had to control my breathing. I collected all my courage and quietly moved my upper body up so that I could inspect my surroundings. There was nobody there, at least as far as I could tell with the dim lighting shining through my window. To calm my nerves, I got up from the bed and turned on the lights. The good thing about a studio apartment is there aren't many rooms someone can hide. I checked behind the corner where my kitchen island is. I checked under my bed and in the bathroom. There was no sign of anyone being inside. Until I saw the coat rack. Most of my jackets are black, so I didn't notice right away, but there was a coat that didn't belong to me as well as a black top hat. My eyes moved to the ground, and when I saw the big leathery shoes with dirt underneath them, my entire body started shaking. "Hello?" I called out to my empty room. There was no response. Of course, I called the police and they checked every single corner, but there was not a single sign of anyone breaking in. As they arrived, the coat and shoes were gone, but I still saw the dirt stains on the ground. The police were clueless. I'm not sure whether they thought I was insane or on drugs, but finally, they left and I was alone again. A part of me wondered if I dreamt it all up or if I mixed up the coat with one of my own, but in the end, I knew. I was just lying to myself. Someone had been in here, and it was my own fault for leaving the chair empty. I figured there was one simple solution to my problem. So the following evening, I made sure to stack enough items on top of that chair to make sure nobody would even think about taking a seat in there. It seemed like a decent plan, considering the ridiculous superstition I was following. I didn't realize, however, that there wasn't going back after you messed up once. That's what happened to Billy. On the first night, you question the act. You can't believe that there could be anything true to that old saying, and how could it? You make yourself completely paranoid. The following night, I was still confident, at least to some degree. The fear was still very much present, but I believed to have a solution. I had books and clothes stacked on top of my chair, and after a couple of hours of tossing in my bed, I managed to fall asleep. What you don't realize is the effect the visitor has on you. It starts nibbling on your mind. If you invite it inside once, it learns your scent, and it will continue coming back each night. No matter where you go or if you stay up all night, it won't stop until your mind can't take it anymore. I knew that. I heard all the stories. I just never believed how cursed we truly were. That night, I woke up by the sound of a whisper. The words made no sense to my mind, but they were near and felt thoroughly unkind. A hand was caressing my face, but when I opened my eyes, there was nobody to see. The next day, I thought about staying with a friend, but I was afraid I might burden them with the same fate, if it followed me. So I got a hotel room instead. I woke up when I heard a hollow laugh. It didn't stop until the sun came up again. For days, I didn't sleep. Wherever I went, I knew it was there with me, chewing on my mind and swallowing my free will. As the days progressed, the whispers became more clear. It was as if it was pulling me over to a side where we could communicate, a side where I could make sense out of what it was saying. Come with me. You won't be missed. Your choice has already been made. The voice was omnipresent. It kept whispering and laughing until every moment of my life was drained in the color of nothingness. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I didn't feel. I was just afraid that if it pulled hard enough, I wouldn't be able to come back. Just like Billy. We were pretty superstitious. All of us were. We all lived fine and well, obeying the communal gut feeling, and it never disappointed as long as we listened to our sayings. I thought about that when every other thought in my mind stopped making sense. I thought about the things I was told ever since I was a kid. The words that might even be able to help your life. Like if you want a visitor to leave your home, a bit of salt poured into their shoes will do the trick. It was a long shot, but the visitor was always polite enough to leave its shoes and coat by the door. I don't know how permanent the trick is, but last night, I finally slept.
I filled my water bottle and put it in my backpack, right next to my energy drink and my granola bar. I stepped out of my house and breathed in a breath of fresh air. I walked past my truck, walked across my backyard and through the small stretch of woods, and found myself on the old railroad tracks. Not a single train had come through in 5 years, so it left for a great place for a walk. I began walking. It was that perfect time where there was life all around. But it hadn't started to grow to the point where you left the woods with a brand new rash and Lyme's disease. I had walked for about a mile when my cell phone rang. I took it out of my pocket and answered. It was Davy. "Tom, I'm almost there," he said, breathless. I could hear his feet rapidly hit the ground as he jogged. "Did he follow you?" I asked. "I don't think so. I saw him again last night," he replied. "What happened?" I asked. "I was walking home from Stacy's and I saw someone duck into an alleyway. I went over to check it out and there was nobody there. Then, when I was going into the apartment building, I saw him across the street. He was wearing that same damn ski mask. I tried to call the police, but he drove off in that truck of his, before they even picked up." "How many times have you seen him at this point now?" "This is the 4th night in a row. I've been seeing him at least once a month for the past 2 years," he exclaimed. "All right, I'm almost there. I'll talk to you then," I replied. "Okay, sounds good." He hung up. I continued walking as I called Jennifer. "I'm meeting with Davy," I said when she picked up. "You guys are going through with it? This is a bad idea, and illegal, you know," she exclaimed. "I know, Jen, but I don't want Davy dead. That creep will kill him sooner or later, and now with the gun, he at least has a chance of survival." "I'm still not on board," she said. "Well, I'm about to give it to him, whether you like it or not." Jen sighed. "Whatever. Just make sure he doesn't get himself killed." "Okay, I gotta go." "Alright, I'll see you after work," she said, defeated. "Jen, wait." "What?" she asked. "I love you." "I love you too, Eric." She hung up. I met up with Davy after about 5 more minutes of walking. "Eric, why the hell are we meeting in the middle of nowhere?" he angrily yelled. "Because nobody, including him, could follow us, and plus, you don't want anybody seeing this." I reached into my backpack and pulled out the revolver. I gave it to Davy, and he began to observe it. "I've never shot a gun before," he said. "It's easy. Here, I'll show you." I showed him how to load the weapon and how the safety worked. "Try shooting it at that tree. It's easy," I said. "If you say so," Davy responded as he lifted the gun and aimed it at the tree. His arms were trembling slightly. He breathed in and gently pulled the trigger. The gun exploded, sending scraps of metal into Davy's skull and sending him to the ground. I quickly took my backpack off and grabbed the bleach-filled water bottle. I began pouring it on the body, quickly removing all of my fingerprints. I felt something tug on my pant leg, and I realized Davy was still kicking. He looked me in the eye, his eyes full of anger and fear. He tried to say something, but he only gurgled. A quick stop made him stop. I took out my phone and called Jennifer. "What do you want, Eric?" she questioned. "I need to tell you something important and private." "Whatever happened to giving Davy the gun?" she asked. "He chickened out," I responded. "Oh, thank God. He was going to get himself killed, you know?" she said. "Yeah, he would have been okay. He's not an idiot, you know. Anyways, back to the thing. When you get home from work, meet me at the old railroad tracks past the backyard, okay?" "Why there?" she asked. "Davy says he saw the creep last night, and I don't want him listening to us," I responded. "Okay, I'll be there after work," she said as she hung up. She wouldn't be home for another 2 hours. That gave me time to bury Davy and the ski mask.